Hello, adventurers. My name's Tyler.
And I'm Richard.
On today's episode, we'll be discussing Session 0 of our latest home game, Curse of Strahd. Welcome to True Strike.
What's up, everyone, and welcome back to the show. Today, as Tyler said, we are going to be discussing our current home game that we just started 2 weeks ago now, Curse of Strahd. Tyler is DMing for us once again and taking us to Barovia.
Blah, blah, blah. There are, actually, that's a spoiler. There might be vampires.
there might be vampires.
We'll find out soon. We haven't gotten very far into Barovia. We actually ended, spoiler alert, stepping into the mist and ending up.
We stepped out of the mist.
In Barovia, you're right.
We stepped out of the mist.
And then out.
Yeah.
And there we are. Session 0 complete.
That's it, yeah. No, I'm really looking forward to this campaign. It's been a long time since I've been in Barovia.
Oh, yeah, you have partaken of Barovia before.
Yeah, not Curse of Strahd, though. The last time I partook in Barovia would have been somewhere in the 90s. Yeah, so it was a long, long way back before there was a Curse of Strahd. He wasn't cursing yet. He was just hanging out in his castle.
He was just Strahd.
Yeah, he was just Strahd. There was no curse yet.
Not that you knew about.
Well, I knew about it, yeah.
Right.
We never saw him. But
that's a problem.
Yeah, I played in a game that was actually DM'd by my sister at the time, and it was just using the module very loosely. So,
which edition was this?
Oh my! I don't even remember what edition this was. The 90s. It was the 90s
edition.
Man.
We didn't remember things back then, bro.
Well, Ravenloft came out in like the 80s.
Sure.
So it had been around for a while. So the module was like an established thing for quite a while before I ever got to visit it or play in it. And I actually had 2 characters in Barovia.
2 characters because one had unfortunately passed, or you ran 2 characters?
No, they both lived. It was just 2 separate games.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there was 2 separate games in Barovia.
So you were quite experienced in the lands.
You would think, but it was the 90s. Yeah, I don't remember very much. I remember that when we first started talking about we were going to run Curse of Strahd, and you started talking about Barovia, and I was all like, oh yeah, I know things, words, Vistani, and started talking about these, and you're like, how much do you know? And I was like, just a little.
Just things from the 90s.
Yeah. But no, I only remembered like very small tidbits and stuff like that. Because like I said, this was the base module. It wasn't Curse of Strahd. So obviously I don't know anything about what's going to happen in this specific module.
I'm interested when we get through this to find out how much you actually did know going in that you weren't aware of.
Oh, I mean,
if anything.
Yeah, I was going to say, if anything. Like my base knowledge is very loose. And honestly, I don't know how much of it has actually changed. Because when it comes to playing modules and stuff like that, obviously I'm not the kind of person that does any research on stuff. I just want to play it.
Mm-hmm.
I want to experience it. So I don't look up anything or anything weird like that. So I didn't look up anything about the Curse of Strahd or try and double check any of my knowledge of Barovia. So I don't know if certain things have changed in Barovia that used to exist in the 90s.
Well, I'm glad I get to be there for your 2020s
yeah.
Experience. Now, that's your touchstone on Barovia. I have nothing, really. A couple of years ago, we were in the middle of running our Acquisitions Incorporated campaign, and I don't even remember what exactly it was. I think it was like an XP to level 3 video or something I had seen about this campaign, and I got very interested. Then I listened to the audio tape for the I, Strahd, Memoirs of a Vampire, novel, and just got hooked into the world via that. And for the last couple of years, because I believe like right away I purchased the Beetle and Grimm's Legendary Edition.
Oh yeah, I remember when you like were doing it because you're all like, "Hey, what if one day in the far future, we played Curse of Strahd after we finish the current games that we have going.
Hey, I know we should be finishing this game in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah.
What if I drop a few $100s right now and I have this so that in a few weeks we'll be able to play it? And we were all like, yeah, that sounds cool. And then 2 years later, we finished that game.
You've just been staring at it on a shelf.
Yep. So yeah, I am hyped. I've done lots of preparation, and I am just excited to share this world with you guys, because I think out of every module and anything like that I've seen from D&D so far, this is the most interesting world to me. And not just because the environment, of course, but the characters and just the tone as a whole. And I'm very excited for you guys to experience it.
Yeah, it stands out a lot because you look at all the other modules and it's all, super high fantasy stuff, with the exception of Spelljammer. But it's just such a weird looking setting and such an intriguing setting because it's like that whole gothic horror thing, reminiscent of like Call of Cthulhu and stuff like that. And it's just very cool aspect.
Right.
Yeah. So it should be very interesting.
I'm excited, and I hope you still agree with me by the time we finish it. Now, speaking of finishing it, we are doing this episode right now, talking about how our session 0 went. There won't be, shouldn't be any spoilers for the actual Curse of Strahd module yet, because we haven't started it. This is our session 0, just getting the players into Barovia, and then going forward, it will be spoilers going through. And the reason I bring this up is you can listen to this if you haven't played Curse of Strahd. Maybe it'll get you interested, but don't worry about having it ruined to you if you're planning on being a player in this campaign. However, every few months, we haven't really decided on a time frame yet, we're going to do check-ins, or like updates of the campaign so far. Those will feature heavy spoilers depending where we are in the campaign. And then once we finish the whole thing, we're going to get all of the players mic'd up and do a post-campaign interview with everyone.
I didn't even know that was going to happen.
Yeah.
That's great.
It's going to be full-on super spoilers. All the players are going to be able to throw any question they want at me. I'll ask them questions, how they thought certain things went, et cetera, et cetera. And yeah, I'm excited for that.
Yeah, obviously for the future episodes of the check-ins, we are going to put some spoiler tags in front of that so that going in that you might be spoiled.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. But today, we're just going to run you through how it went. So,
yeah, trying to remember how long session 0 was. I felt like a couple of hours.
It was almost to the minute 2 hours.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was 2 hours.
Yeah, because I didn't track it like I normally do.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't look at the time clock or anything like that, so I wasn't sure exactly where we clocked in when we left.
So we typically play, when we do our home games, we typically play 6 at night to 9 at night, 3-hour games. And we got started about half an hour late, so 6:30, and we ended at 9:30. Yeah. So right there at the 2-hour mark.
I do remember when the game ended, I was disappointed. I was just like ready to keep going at that point, and I was like literally about to say my next action and the next thing I was going to do, and you're all like, see you next time, folks. And it was over.
Like I said then, I wanted to make sure you guys had time if you wanted to ask me any questions or anything. One thing going into this campaign, and the main reason I wanted to run this session 0 was to not only establish everyone's character into the world a little bit just before, stuff really hits the fan, but I wanted to give you guys at least a session to kind of play out your character a bit, feel yourself, and if you hated it, be able to be like, you know what, Tyler, I messed up. I changed my mind.
This is not what I expected.
I want to switch it. And, for the first couple levels, if you come to me and you're like, a bard is not right for me and you want to change, that's not a problem. But the session 0 was really what I wanted that for.
I don't know, considering the impression that I get for this campaign and this module, that might be a self-solving problem. You
never know, though. There's a chance you're gonna be the hero. You're You're going to be one that lives, and everyone else will be, making on their third characters or whatever. But
I'm the hero?
you maybe.
It's me? It was me the
it was
entire
you
time?
The entire time. Sitting there in theaters.
With my popcorn?
Yep.
Great.
Now, to start things off, I did a reading of the Taraka deck for each of you. For those that don't know, performing a reading of the Taraka deck going into this module is a random item generator, essentially, of sorts, where you split up the high deck and low deck of the Taraka cards, and you shuffle them up, and you lay them out in a certain order. And for the DM, don't super stress, but do a couple practice readings, because I did, and I'm really glad I did, because the couple times I did it by myself in a room, I messed up. And when we got to actual game night, that didn't happen. Thank God.
That was flawless.
So it's not super complicated. Don't feel like you have to memorize the whole deck like I did at first. You can have the book with you. Just make sure you've gone through it a couple times so you can get through the pages pretty quickly. And I highly recommend getting a set of the official Taraka cards instead of using like poker cards, which you can do if that's all you have available to you. But I don't think anything beats laying down actual in-game themed Taraka cards in front of your players instead of like, oh, it's a Jack of Hearts. And they're like, what does that mean? And you're like, I don't know, let's find out. It's cool to be like, oh, here's, the executioner. And they're like, oh, that's ominous. I'm going to look at this art while you flip your pages for 30 seconds.
Yeah, and the art was really, really cool on the Beetle and Grimm cards.
But Taraka reading out of the way. Actually, really quick.
Wait, no, you are underselling the Taraka reading, like right off the jump here.
How so?
Because you just glossed over it. You're just like, yeah, we just get a real quick reading with, some Taraka cards. You don't have to use 52 pickup.
That's exactly how it went.
Cards. No, we get in here and he dims the lights down, puts on candles, right? Unfurls this red velvet cloth with a gold trim all around it. And like starts laying out these Taraka cards like I'm like in an actual like little hut with a mystic who's
I didn't
giving
have the fog
us
machine going. I should have had the fog machine.
I remember there being fog. I don't. You say there was no fog machine, but I remember mist. I remember fog. But yeah, no, you're completely underselling this Taraka reading. It was candlelit. Like I said, a nice big fancy mat out and everything like that. The cards, like I said, were beautiful artwork on the cards, laid out in an expert fashion.
There's a photo of it on our Instagram page.
Yeah, it was very, very cool. So yeah, I just want to put that out there. You were definitely underselling the Taraka reading there.
Look, from my side of the screen, it was just panic and making sure I didn't misinterpret a card.
Now, obviously, that doesn't have to be like that in every home game, but the extra effort that you put into it was much appreciated. It was a very cool experience to get. All those cards and explain to us what the background and the lore and all the fun stuff that came along with it.
Yeah, and I think, granted, I have the luxury of being on one side of the screen. I think the cards you were dealt are going to lead to a pretty coherent story, which is part of the issue with the random generation. Is there is literally a card in there that could be like, oh, this magic item, it's right below your nose right now, and you're like, oh, this whole thing,
it's in your steamer trunk.
Yeah.
You forgot about it.
So that was something I was definitely sweating.
It was really cool to see because the way the cards played out it seemed and it felt very fluid. Like it didn't seem disjointed at all, and it felt like it was actually telling its own story. And it's part of the design, I guess. It's
well designed, and like I said, GMs, make sure you practice a couple times.
It was all your practice.
It really does help.
All your
I
practice.
Promise. Anything else about the Taraka reading before we move on?
No, other than it was really cool.
I want to thank all of you for taking notes. I expected maybe one of you to actually take notes, and instead I had to reread each of the cards a couple times because you guys were very thoroughly taking notes, and I think that's wonderful.
Oh yeah, I probably went a little bit too far because at one point I remember asking you if the position of the cards was
Yes, you did.
in a matter, and if you were to look at my notes, you would actually see a very crude drawing of
I was gonna say,
of the
there
board
pictures?
with the cards laid out on it, and then the names of the cards written in the spaces and everything like that. Like I could actually pull up and show you right now where the cards were as you laid them out and the order that you laid them out in.
Well, good. If I ever have any questions, I'll come to you.
I took a bunch of useless notes on that one.
How do I make this come back later and be important? I'm gonna lock that in storage for a later time. But something I found most exciting, we got to dive into your characters.
Yeah.
We had 4 players. We had Richard, Richard's daughter. We had my wife, and we had our colleague from work, whose name is CJ. CJ comes up often on this podcast. Either us bringing him up as the guy who listens and needs to go be the hero, or his infamous game character, Carl's Jr., the halfling ranger that everyone hated and was the reason our party had a bad ending in the Icewind Dale campaign. And
that's so harsh. Everyone hated him.
Everyone hated him. It's how I remember it.
I remember getting along pretty well with Carl.
Yeah, until the end when he ruined everything.
I mean, he took some actions.
Yes,
yeah.
he did.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't say that I didn't. So, that whole pot calling the kettle.
But first, would you like to describe your character?
My character?
Yeah, well, you're here. This is easy. We'll bounce back and forth on the other two.
Okay.
So we give the listeners an idea of who the characters are, what their names are, and you get a little word picture,
A little word picture. So I bounced around a couple times on who I was going to play in this campaign, and I ended with something that I've never played before, which was a bard, which was pretty interesting. And actually, I'd like to say that this was a super original character idea, but it was workshopped with you. So you are kind of the reason why I'm playing this character, because I wanted to play a bard, but I wanted to introduce certain elements into that. And I came up with a character named Trist, and they were living in an inn, a kind of unassuming character, not an orphan as my last character was, which was a rogue, so you're required to be an orphan when you
have
play
to
a rogue.
have deceased parents.
Yeah, you cannot have both your parents be alive. So yeah, this time I decided to have living parental units, my mother, and Trist is, I don't know, we want a physical description of Trist?
I mean, it's up to you.
Yeah, Trist is about 5'5", slender, long black hair, they, them, so they are a non-binary character. I actually was gifted an item by my DM that allows me to do some very minor changes to my physical appearance. So nothing so crazy as to like completely altering the way that I look massively, but more whether or not my features show as prominently feminine or prominently masculine. So I can kind of, be gender fluid in the most realistic sense of the word gender fluid. And yeah, Trist is going to be, I don't know if you want to go too deep onto class, but I'm going to be
that's up to you.
College of Spirits bard.
Ooh, spoiler for the rest of our party members.
Yeah, so I don't know if they're going to be listening to this. Who knows?
Sure CJ will.
CJ will, but I'm pretty sure that he already knew that. And like I said, College of Spirits was kind of your idea, honestly. We were talking about bards, and I was like, I really want to play a bard, but I don't know how to incorporate using a tarot deck into my character and using that to do things. And you were like, well, we've already talked about this in the past. You don't remember. I already gave you the perfect idea for this. And I was like, I don't remember this. And yeah, we talked about it and workshopped it. And then we ended up with my College of Spirits bard, Trist, which I think is going to be a lot of fun. Definitely a different kind of character than I usually play. More outspoken. I'm going to probably be talking a lot more than my characters usually talk.
That sounds impossible.
I mean, Nith,
No, there's no
my
way.
rogue didn't talk
No,
that
your
much.
rogue. The joke of the campaign was that all of the high charisma characters in that campaign would talk and talk and talk, and the DM wouldn't ask for a single roll, and you would come in and be like, "That's right," and he'd be like, "Make a persuasion check, Nith," and you're like, "Gosh, dang it!"
Yeah, Nith wasn't the most charismatic of characters, and I did talk a little bit with Nith.
Yep.
I got into a lot of trouble with
Yes.
Nith because I did not have high charisma.
No, but that's
No.
what made it wonderful.
Yeah, and my cleric that I just recently came off of playing, also not super charismatic.
Victor, which you guys might actually recognize from our Till the Last Gas playthrough.
Yeah, so the old man Victor. So yeah, you do probably recognize that. He also, like I said, wasn't super charismatic. He did talk a fair amount.
Oh, yeah.
But
I would easily put him as the front man of the party.
I don't know if I'd call him the front man
If
of the party.
if you guys walked in as a triangle, you were the peak.
That was because I had a shield.
Well, you also had a rogue, which was not going to be the front person, and then you had a lawyer
Who should have been the front person.
But
He's a lawyer.
he picked up the hard conversations,
Yeah, true.
but he definitely wasn't the one to start the conversation.
So yeah, no, Trist is a high charisma character. So
Obscenely high.
right off the jump, I've got the charisma, I've got the persuasion,
You've got the power.
I've got the bit of deception. I'm a bit of a grifter. So I think it's going to be a fun character to be because, like I said, Trist is more outgoing, I would say, than my other characters. So this person is more likely to talk to people, which I don't know if that's going to be great in Barovia, to be honest. I'm starting to have doubts.
We'll find out. It might be wonderful. It might be a great choice.
We'll see.
Yeah, we're 0 sessions in.
I'm really
We'll
banking on
find
that
out.
that high persuasion modifier to save me.
Well, I'll go over my wife's character then, since I feel like I could speak more openly about hers than anyone else's and not get in trouble. She is playing a deep gnome barbarian that was raised by a king and queen and had a pretty normal life as far as royalty goes. And then one night, a jealous sibling of hers and a small posse go into her room. Oh, sorry, his room. She's playing him, with the attempt to murder him. And in a blind rage of just waking up and defending themselves, murders his brother and friends. And then decides, oh, dang, I need to go. And skedaddled out of the kingdom before he found himself at a school. Let's give some steps to get there, but it happened. And that's one theme along the way. All the characters end up at this school.
Yeah, I forgot to touch on that. Yeah, we ended up at the school.
Yep, Nith School for Gifted Youngsters. We'll touch back to this in a minute. So her character, his name is Moses. She described him, and I quote, as a very ripped Jesus. Like literally ripped shirt. And just abs for days. About 4 foot tall. What was it? Long brown hair. Literally just, she showed us a photo of Jesus looking absolutely shredded.
With a sick tat
Yeah.
on his forearm or
And
shoulder.
she's like,
I think
that's
shoulder.
him. That's
Yeah.
Moses. Yeah. She's playing a barbarian, of course. I don't know what else I would say about that. Was there anything I missed?
No, not really. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. the
Really
number
likes
one thing.
herbology.
Yeah, he's really into
Herbology and mushrooms.
yeah,
But that's it, yeah.
stuff like that. You want to handle the next one?
Well, so I mean, honestly, you know more about these characters than
Yeah, but
than
I think we'll bounce
I
back.
do. But my daughter's character She plays Noric, who is a high elf wizard, who, from what I gather in our session 0, does appear to be somewhat noble in nature.
That would be very perceptive of you.
Yeah, who has brothers, I think a couple brothers, who has parents that, or actually it's a he/him.
Yes.
Yeah, that should be
Noric is
noted
he/him.
as well. Noric is he/him, who has parents that expect, I guess, more from him than he wants in life as far as like what he wants to do. Has some obsession with maps and lore and locations and star charting and all that fun stuff.
The world outside.
The
of
world
what they know.
outside of his little dome, essentially. And has decided to leave home because he got some mysterious contact, basically promising him more knowledge, I guess, to the outside and more knowledge of the unknown, and comes to the same school.
Last, we have CJ, his character, he/him. His name is Sir Hootzifer Bronzewing.
Sir Hootzifer of Clan Bronzewing.
Yes. Sir Hootzifer of Clan Bronzewing. He's an Owlin in a campaign where I was like, hey, everybody, they're kind of funky down in Barovia, you know, just a heads up. You're going to have an easier time. If you make the more humanoid, the better, essentially. And he was like, yeah, but what if I was covered in feathers?
Yeah, and I was like, bet, human.
Yeah. Right.
That's it, I'm a human.
So, yep. He is a cleric of the Morning Lord. And, yeah. He's got some goals and aspirations.
I have disguise kits, so the plan is that we'll make him as human as possible.
Whose plan is this, though?
Trist.
So,
I don't know if he's on board with this yet. I don't know how the mirror situation is in Barovia, so I don't know how long it's going to take him to notice, but we'll see.
Mirrors. Barovia. You're funny. So... I don't want to get into his story too much either, so I'll leave it there.
Yeah, he's a bit of a mystery to me.
Just owl person.
The Sir Hootzifer would imply to me that he is also a noble. I'm surrounded by nobles. There's nobles everywhere I look, and I'm, just this, little person who was raised in an inn, right?
That seems pretty
Mom's
cool.
a barkeep. There's nothing noble about that. I'm just reading fortunes and telling stories and singing songs and playing my violin, and then I go to school.
This all sounds wonderful.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, Hootzifer ends up at the school.
Yeah, he also ends up at the school.
But what school are we talking about? We'll get to that in a minute. After a word from me. So, I really like y'all's team composition. We've got our barbarian, we've got a cleric in Hootzifer, we've got a wizard, and we've got our bard. We have a decent support synergy here for actually keeping everybody up and going.
Hey, it sounds good on paper.
And we've definitely got some good damage output between the wizard and barbarian. Cleric too. I can't undervalue how good the cleric is at just everything.
Clerics can be good, yeah.
And not to mention a bard who is literally a jack of all trades.
I got that persuasion, baby.
Yeah, so
That's
you guys are set up pretty well for success.
I don't know.
Them's be the dice. I get it. Like, things could go south really quickly, but I think just on paper, you guys are okay.
Yeah, on paper it does seem like it's going to be a party comp that works. In session, we seem like we have personalities that are just good enough to mesh with each other, with a little bit of tension here and there to make it interesting and make it fun. So I think that's going to be good. So not just our class synergy, but I think our personalities that we all chose.
Yeah.
Which we often do this when we do games, which is we kind of hold everything very close to the chest
until
until the night of. Like, nobody heard Trist's voice until session 0. Nobody heard Sir Hootsifer's voice
of Clan
Bronzewing's voice until session 0. So yeah, we didn't really give each other anything.
Yeah,
as far as what our characters were until you decided to let us start introducing our characters, and we just started playing them.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Now, I did at least have a decent bit of backstory from everybody, so that introducing each character, had you describe your character, and then we ran through maybe a minute or two of established backstory that each of you gave me.
Yeah.
And then I pulled you into the story based on backstory you had written. Now, where I had pulled you to, Nith School for Gifted Youngsters. Let's start there. Nith is a character very near and dear to Richard's heart.
That's the aforementioned rogue who talked, some would say not enough, some would say too much.
Yes. When Carl created a great disturbance in that game, our characters were plummeted backwards in time quite a few many years, and we each got to do a little outro. And one of the things Richard had mentioned was that Nith was going to start up a school.
Yeah.
And I was like, that would be a really cool thing if that school was still around. Considering this game is starting not super long after that game ended. So just
long enough.
Yeah. Enough generations have passed that, you know, Nith is no longer with us, unfortunately, but his ancestors and the school still exist. And there we go. We have an established location. That was a fun little spot.
Yeah, I did not think that Nith Schools for Gifted Youngsters was ever going to make an appearance again outside of the last game of Rime of the Frost Maiden. But yeah, when we did our wrap-ups, I was like, what would Nith do back in time if he could, literally do anything? And like I said, he was required to be an orphan because he was a rogue. So what would he do other than try and help other orphans?
Right.
And also, he had some telekinetic abilities. So what else would he do for gifted youngsters?
Yep.
So yeah, he would try and find other orphans that were like him, that had gifts, and try and help them along in their life.
Yeah.
And apparently it worked out pretty well.
Mm-hmm. It's unfortunate what happened to your legs at one point. The statue of you were in a wheelchair. So
yeah, that's right. Yeah, I was in a wheelchair, which is real sad. Nith was so fast.
You were so quick.
He was the quickest boy.
Gosh, like literally no one could keep
like
up with you.
Lightning.
I remember you took off with your double dash speed once, and your snowshoes flew off.
Yeah,
like mid run. Good times.
Yeah, good times. But yeah, when we arrived at this school, we were introduced to Zith. Mm-hmm. Who is the, according to my notes, the great grandson of Nith.
Right.
Yeah. So we got 4 greats in there.
Yeah. So Zith, he has a diminished telekinesis ability compared to Nith in his prime, as it's gone down the bloodline. It's been, washed out a little bit. However, something you guys didn't get to, and I doubt it'll ever come up. Actually, you know what? And the way the cookie crumbled, and there were months, air quotes, spent at this school that we can call back on in flashbacks. You don't know this until right now, but does Richard remember the slug?
I do.
The slug still exists. It is much larger, and it is kept at an underground level of the school.
Oh, God.
And Zith connects to the slug, and it amplifies his telekinesis.
Okay.
And this is how he's able to find gifted youngsters from across the Sword Coast.
This is a deep cut here. Does the slug have a name?
Sabrongso or something? I don't know. It's your slug. You should be the one to name it.
I'm gonna have to workshop this one. We're getting really close to IPs here, so we're gonna have to really think about this one and make sure we don't step on any toes.
Hey man, as long as the brain slug had to come back.
I do realize now that I have to create a Hero Forge mini of Nith that is aged and in a wheelchair now. So this is just another file that I have to buy and 3D print to have on my shelf of all my characters is the wheelchair old man version of Nith.
Ooh, that means we could use it one day. Okay, never mind. So you all come back to school. Conveniently, these 4 characters are, it's four people to a dorm, and these 4 people were all placed in the same dorm. That's how they got to know each other. None of them knew each other going in, but after a few months of spending time together at the school, they had established both bonds and flaws together. Now, this is something that was actually inspired by Richard running Alice is Missing. Inspired me in a way that in that game, you as a group come up with the town lore. You come up with some things that you like and don't like about each other, and it's this big collaborative effort before you start the game, and everything you say is canon.
Yeah, Alice is Missing is a very interesting game in that the setup for that game takes almost an hour.
Yeah,
of character creation, and you're not really creating a character as far as like name and age and look and everything like that. You're playing an established character, but what they challenge you with in that game is to think about the school year and childhood that you have with the other characters at the game and come up with like flashbacks, right? So like things that happened that are of note. So like things that were positive and sometimes things that were negative. And when you had said that you were going to do that in our game, immediately intrigued because that was a really cool mechanic.
Yes, I thought so as well.
And when we played it in Alice is Missing, it really helped you get into your character. Right. Because now you're having to think about this, and it almost feels like you're put on the spot because you kind of are. When we played Alice is Missing, nobody really knew that was coming, and even I had just really read the rules, didn't really know how in-depth it was. So on the spot now you're like, oh, I have to think about like what happened in our childhood and or the last school year or the last few years. And when you start to think about it, it just puts you in that role-playing mindset. So it makes it a lot easier for you to connect with your character. And I thought that was really cool how you implemented that.
Yeah. So I wanted to capture that lightning that you'd created thanks to that game. And if we could take some characters that we're just learn the names of and have no attachment to at all, and in an hour create bonds to each other's characters that actually are meaningful, why couldn't we do that in a game of D&D?
Yeah.
And I had noticed no one had written bonds and flaws in their character sheets. We use D&D Beyond, so I was able to go on everyone's pages and look at what they already had. And I was thinking, well, what a wonderful way to fill that empty spot. So we canonically spent a few months, essentially, like over winter. Like it was winter when everyone met, and everything went up until right about like spring break, and that's when right before we were getting towards the end. So over those few months, everyone got to tell me. Then we had 4 players, and I had each person create 2 bonds with 2 different people. It could be anything, essentially. They just had to describe what it was and how it worked. And then the other player could like workshop it with them, but they couldn't like deny it. So if I'm playing like Toby the Fox Guardian and you're over there and I'm like, yeah, I really like the teamwork we've built up over the last couple months of playing basketball together. And you're like, I like the way that you follow my lead. And I would be like, okay, yeah. And I would write really, works well with Trist, and I like to follow his lead, and stuff like that. And then boom, that's a bond.
Yeah.
And then everyone would do that for 2 people. Some people had bonds together, and and there's a chance you wouldn't have a bond with somebody else, which is fine. You develop this story as we go. But this is a cool way to have everybody feel connected going into it, instead of a game where, hello, we're 4 adventurers, and we are just now meeting for the first time, and man, I would die for you. Like, it's some way to be attached. But then we went through and had everybody establish 1 flaw for somebody. And for a hot minute there, I thought everybody's flaw was going to be on the owl.
It almost was. Mine wasn't even gonna be on the owl. I had to actually switch it in the middle because it's interesting because you set this up and it started off like you were like dropped it on us and you're like, okay, this is what we're gonna do. You're gonna establish 2 bonds and then a flaw. And then immediately everybody started looking around the room and were like, what are we gonna do? Like, what is it that we're gonna do? And everybody started thinking about it. And I immediately had a couple that popped into my head. I had one like major one, and basically you allowed us to go back and forth. Somebody could start and then somebody could go. And I think I went first and I established a bond with Noric over map making and lore and stuff like that. And I immediately had the next one in my head, and it was going to be a bond with Moses. And then somehow during these flashbacks and during other people's flashbacks, we started talking about events that happened and these bonds that were happening between people. And Sir Hootzifer started talking about something, and I mentioned something that my character had done. This was completely off of me creating a bond or a flaw with him. And the reaction that I got from him was enough for me to be like immediately like, oh no, that's a flaw. We're circling back to that.
Right.
and it immediately flip-flopped from me. I was going to have a bond with him. And immediately after hearing that part of the conversation was all like, no, it organically created this flaw that I knew I was going to use on him. So it was very neat how it kind of evolved through just the conversation of us talking about all these things that happened to us.
And we all talked for, it was at least half an hour?
Yeah.
So which was really fun I got to really just take a seat back and like just kind of direct a little bit, if it's, like I started to like drag a little here, like, okay, well, what about this? And I'm like, yeah, and, kind of let it just come out. And you guys really got to, you basically talked in character.
Yeah.
For at least half an hour there. And as an onlooker, it felt cool to be like, yep, now I'm as just someone watching know more about these 4 characters.
Yeah.
Which is wonderful because it means I get to pull from that.
So much more established, yeah. Mm-hmm. And Mr. Hootie there got 2 flaws.
Oh, he got nicknames too. He hates it.
Yeah, Hoots and Hootie. Yeah, he got 2 flaws saddled on him.
Moses calls him Who's.
Yeah. Yep. He didn't get them all though. I got a flaw,
which surprised me.
Yeah, the flaws that went around the table. Hoots got 2, and I got 1. And then I did my bonds I did one with Moses and one with North.
Who had the 4th flaw? It was Moses.
It was Moses. That's right. Yeah, Moses got a flaw too. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't remember what it was.
It was, I don't remember what it was.
I'm sure it's written down.
It wasn't one of mine.
It's on her sheet.
Yeah.
Anything else you'd like to bring up about the school before we move on?
No, I really enjoyed this version of a character lead-in. Not just because of the bonds and the flaws, that was a big part of it, but because of the whole, it was different. It was different than the last couple of campaigns where one of them was, the traditional, you kind of meet at like an inn where you're, all coming for a job or whatever.
Yeah, you are here, you are looking for work for one reason or another.
Yeah, and then
you're put on a squad.
Yeah, you're put on a squad, and then we had the Acquisitions Incorporated game where we were going for job interviews, working for Acquisitions Incorporated, and then of course I've played many games where you were just adventurers in the inn, and you fall into an adventure that lands in your lap of riches or protecting a town or something like that. But this was it was different because we were all kind of almost summoned to a school, but with not really knowing why we were there as a group, but more individual motivations. And then once we started hanging out with each other over the course of a couple of months, it just felt like our characters had a compelling reason to be together,
right? That
wasn't just immediately adventure.
And that's what I was hoping for. I mean, you guys were still, like I said, you were put in a room. How convenient, but wasn't like the 4 of you are gonna go on an epic quest.
Yeah,
it's like, hey, the 4 of you just live in the same room,
and
you don't even have to hang out.
And it wasn't even just that either, because it was not all 4 of us in a room,
right?
So I don't know how you randomized the people coming to the room. But it was me.
Oh, it was your initiative.
The first one. Oh, that's right. We did.
I had you roll initiative out the gate.
Yeah.
And your initiative controlled the flow of our entire session 0.
Yeah, because I was the first one in the room.
And you were the first person to essentially rolling the highest on initiative. I had you describe your characters, and we did your introduction arcs based on who
it all
had the
makes
higher
sense
initiative.
now.
Then it was the same order you went into the room.
Yeah.
It was the same order you did lots of things.
Yeah, so we weren't even all together in the room just right off the jump.
It was not even the same time. Yeah,
Trist was in the room for a little while, had some time to explore the school, had some time for me to ask questions about the school, which I was being a real pester about that.
No, you're good.
I asked so many questions about this
that's what
school
it's for.
at about the time that I was alone in this school. And then Norik came to the school.
Mm-hmm.
And was hanging out. So me and Norik had some time to be together.
Very different sides of the room.
Yep. Very, very different sides of the room. And then Hootsy, he came to the room and brought his own dynamic into the room and was in the room for a little while. And then Moses came into the room.
Moses,
and then changed the dynamic even further. So it was even more of a disjunction from the just 4 adventurers meeting in a room.
Right, because you all had time
going
to
on
talk.
from there. Yeah, because there was time for the characters as they came to the room to talk about stuff and do things before we even got to the whole bonds and flaws and expanded on even more.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think all that combined made for a very unique session 0.
Right. And
as far as character introduction.
People you weren't going into the school with all of your spells and stuff learned, as your bard. They had bard classes where you could focus in on some of your abilities and wow, now look, you've got these level 1 spells and stuff like that. The same with Norik and their wizarding spells. Maybe they knew some cantrips going in, but then after taking some wizard classes, really learned, or Moses learning how to control their rage as a barbarian, where the only time it's happened to them before, it was out of literally just blind anger in self-defense, and now they've learned how to control it. So going forward, this is an ability they can call upon. And that was another reason where I was like, I like this hook. Speaking of hooks, we got to bring you into Barovia.
Yeah, we had to get to Barovia eventually.
Right. And essentially, Zith is going out. He's heard a distress call from another would-be youth. and youth is used very what's the word I'm looking for? Loosely. I think Norik is 28. So anyone that's youthful in heart.
Youthful at heart.
Right. And he's gone out, and it's spring break. Most people have gone home because you're not stuck at this school. You are invited to stay as long as you wish. And it's there to
Not a
help.
boarding school.
Right. And you, of course, get to stay free of charge. You use the facilities as you wish, et cetera, et cetera. The 4 of you stayed, and one night you were outside doing a powwow with Moses. Some of you were participating, some of you aren't. And Zith's horse just runs back up. And you're all like, oh, weird. The horse is here, but no Zith. Seems kind of panicked. And you guys are checking on the horse, everything. And I believe it was you noticed that one of the pockets on the horse was open.
Yeah, I checked the saddlebags.
And you pulled out a letter.
Yeah.
I remember it was pretty hard to read.
Oh man, the typeface in Barovia. That's something else.
It's that old world calligraphy,
Yeah, I think Tris needs to spend a little bit more time in class.
It's that intelligence score.
Yeah, that intelligence score of 9 really was shining there as I tried to read the letter from Kolyan Indrovich. Vanovich something.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, so we did get a letter basically that was pleading for help. Well, we didn't get the letter, but we see that Zith somewhere along the line got a letter about somebody named Irina who had
you got one right.
Yeah, who had fell ill. She was struck. Didn't really give us too many details other than the fact that she's in trouble. And even the townsfolk are panicked. And what's the guy's name? Idranovich or whatever. He's the lead burgomaster of the town. So, yeah, and he's calling out for help.
Yeah. Now, I actually need to ask this outside of game now. Were you... Because obviously, you were like, all right, let's go. The team packed up and went. You actually, the horse, I think you either talked to the horse, horse went back, whatever. You guys followed the horse back.
Yeah, I think if our memory serves, we kind of purposefully spooked the horse to see if it would go back.
And it started going back.
And it started going back.
Yeah. After grabbing your things and stuff like that. So the horse had a little bit of a lead. So at this point, you're following the tracks.
Yeah, we were following tracks.
And it's pretty dark. You had some lights up, etc. My question is, do you believe Trist and the gang were going after the horse, following where it came from, because of the letter and wanting to save this Irina and check on this town and stuff? Or were you going because Zith was missing?
So I can't speak for the other party members.
Sure.
But as far as Trist is considered, it's kind of two birds, one stone.
Really?
Yeah, kind of a situation. The more definitive motivation is to figure out what happened to Zith.
Okay.
So that's like the main motivation, is figuring out what went wrong here, why the horse is back but Zith isn't back.
Right.
And as kind of a side note is finding out somebody is in such dire need of assistance that it requires a very official stamped letter to be sent out, because they obviously can't, get help anywhere local.
Mm-hmm.
As far as money is considered, I don't care. They don't care about.
Oh yeah, they
that.
did mention wealth.
Yeah, there was wealth mentioned in the letter. Not a concern for Trist.
Okay.
So like I said, main motivation, Zith. Secondary motivation, helping someone.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was really wondering. I had a feeling the party for the, and like you can't speak for everybody, but I had a feeling outside looking in that Zith would be the primary motivator.
Yeah.
Just because you guys had an attachment to him, and
yes.
you don't know any of these townsfolk. However, like you said, if you have any kind of like heroic heart or motivation there, I could see a help wanted ad
yeah,
being at least a decent motivator for some.
Yeah.
So interesting. Thank you for answering that.
But yeah, and like I said, I can't speak for the rest, but as a party, we decided to go ahead and track the horse. So we followed the horse for quite some time until it started to get difficult to follow the horse because of a mysterious mist. Yeah, at which point we started to kind of lose track of each other slightly. I remember at some point it was dark enough to where we needed some light, so I did dancing lights, and I was using that to kind of guide us through.
Right.
And I remember there was a point at which my lights started to seem somewhat unnatural.
Mm-hmm.
They started to weaken. They weren't working the way that
Well, the color had changed
I would
as
expect.
well.
Yeah, the color had changed.
You said typically your lights are like a vibrant blue or something.
Yeah.
And then they had started turning to like a sickly green.
Yeah.
And right about that time, you would uncast it, right?
Yeah,
You
I
went
was going to
recast
attempt to recast it to see if it was, something that I could fix.
Right.
Yeah, we were going to reboot the system.
Sure.
Yeah.
Have you tried turning it
Yeah.
off and back
Try
on?
turning it off and on again. So that's what I was going to do. We're going to try turning it off and on again. And that's when stuff started to really go downhill.
Right.
Yeah.
You immediately failed to save. You had started choking
Yep.
on the very air around you, and it started a chain reaction where the two closest to you were soon after you, and Hootsie Magootsie, not far back, was the next to succumb to this, and you all started running.
Yeah.
I assume for fear of death.
Oh yeah, of course.
But you managed to
breathing thing's pretty important.
break on through to the other side, and there's air. It's breathable here.
Yeah,
Which
breathable.
is great. Thank goodness. You're now in Barovia. They do have breathable oxygen.
Spoiler alert: we're in Barovia.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
that's a positive.
Yep. And that's pretty much where we ended it.
That was it.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
we got to ask a couple of very quick questions,
Yes.
which were essentially answered with, that the overall environment did seem different. So like the lighting changed, the moon
Yes.
position changed. So it didn't seem like we were in Kansas anymore.
Right.
It was essentially how far we got. And I was about to start casting dancing lights again. Honestly, I think was the next move.
I think you'd asked about the hoof prints too.
Yeah, because I wanted more light so that I could inspect more of where we might be going and
Yeah.
see if we were still on track for tracking the horse.
I think the big
And,
thing with
yeah.
the hoof prints is that they were, at this point, they were no longer coming towards you and back. They were just coming towards you.
Yeah.
So it seemed like the horse had either gotten lost in the mist or maybe the horse didn't make it.
Yeah, some heartless DM killed the horse.
You will never know. So yeah, that was our home game, session 0 of Curse of Strahd.
Yeah.
Did you have any other questions while I am under oath and being recorded?
No, I don't want to spoil anything. I already have ideas and I have things that I want to do. Like I
me
said,
too. I played this.
immediately when I looked at the clock, I was like, "Oh, this is great. We still have like an hour left." Because I assumed we were playing for a little while longer. Didn't realize that we had used so much of our time. So I was expecting to have another hour of fresh Barovia fun, and then it got cut.
Oh, that's all for session 1.
Cut by a harsh DM
we'll
with
actually start
with a
the
stopwatch. And but no, yeah, I'm excited, a little terrified of what's going to happen to my poor little Trist. But we'll see. It's going to be a lot of fun. It'll be the first 4-player game that we've had.
It'll be the first.
So
no,
I mean a while, not the first one, but the one we've had in a while.
I was going to say our other one ended in a 4-player game, but it didn't start that way.
No, it didn't start that way.
And in fact, I think we only probably played maybe 4 sessions with four players. It wasn't a lot.
Yeah, it wasn't a lot.
It was once with the teams combined.
Yeah.
4 or 5 sessions, and I think the majority of that, one of the players, if not all the sessions of that, one of the players is over Zoom.
Yeah, Zoom.
So this is our first group of 5 in a room.
Yeah, we're all sitting in a room.
So that was one big thing. Oh, speaking of props, we had the letter that you got from the horse was a physical prop.
Yeah, physical prop
and
from Beatles and Grimm.
So
with a typeface that was very hard to read via candlelight. In my defense, I was literally reading this in candlelight.
Literally candlelight.
Yeah.
On like stained yellow paper.
Yeah.
Wax sealed. And
yeah.
If I had written it myself, it'd have been Microsoft Sans Serif.
Very impressive letter.
So yeah, just want to thank you guys as the party for being great so far. You were wonderful players. It went super smoothly. I was terrified. Just starting a new campaign. And it went better than I could have expected.
Oh, it went great. I loved it.
So, and one more thank you to all of you for listening. If you care about this series at all, congratulations. There will be more.
Yeah.
We will be, like I said, checking in every few months or so. And it'll be update 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. And we'll mention at the top that spoilers ahead, you be warned, etc. But for now, I've been Tyler.
And I've been Richard.
And we've been True Strike. Hey, adventurers. Thanks again for joining us today. Please be sure to give us a follow on your favorite podcasting platforms and YouTube. If there's any questions you'd like to write into the show, you can hit us up on Twitter or Instagram. New episodes release every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern. Thank you for listening to True Strike.